Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Citizen Kino, a show all about our favorite movies. I'm Max Heresy, joined by my little brother Sam. Sam, thanks for being up here today. You feeling good? You excited to be here?
I'm glad to be here, man. I think we've got a lot of really cool movies to talk about.
We do, and we're going to start with The Batman, a 2022 movie directed by Matt Reeves of, I believe, Zombieland fame, starring Robert Pattinson in the dual role as Bruce Wayne and Batman. So, for the longest time, Sam, I really just didn't even think this movie was going to exist. It was almost like a surreal feeling when it actually came out in the theaters. One, because I feel like it was just a movie you'd been hearing about for so long. It was kind of just in development for so long. And two, the style of movie that it was. Taking a step back from the real action-driven, CGI-driven superhero movies, and it puts more of a focus on, Batman, he's more of a detective than a fighter in this movie. Granted, he beats up a lot of people pretty bad.
He does do that.
That's just what I love about this movie. It really takes that detective noir spin, that Batman comics and Batman, animated series and movies, they really pull that stuff off to a T, and it's nice to know we got a live action movie to finally capture that aesthetic.
Yeah, definitely. I think Batman is definitely in his strongest element when he's more of a detective, solving mysteries in the criminal underbelly of Gotham City. And I got to talk about this movie's villain, man. Paul Dano as Riddler, I just think, the Riddler is such a cool villain, but I feel like he's never really been shown in a movie before quite like this. And I think Paul Dano pulled it off excellently, and they had a really cool take on the Riddler.
Definitely. And you think, the only big screen portrayal of the Riddler we had up to this point was Jim Carrey's in... Was that Batman Forever or something?
I think that sounds about right.
And he went full into that kind of campy, comical aesthetic. And, we kind of have, not to be one of those dudes who's make it dark and gritty and blah, blah, blah. But we got a dark and gritty Riddler. And I think he's just so creepy, dude.
Yeah, they pulled it off
so
perfectly.
Creepy. Oh my.
He's very slow and methodical, but also just kind of a psycho.
And, looking beyond just Dano as Riddler, I think the supporting cast in this movie is really spot on all the way around.
Oh, for sure. Colin Farrell as Penguin does a
might
great
be
job.
Outside of Pattinson, because I do think he steals the show. I think Farrell is the best, not necessarily the best, but the most captivating supporting character. Zoe Kravitz is spot on as Catwoman. I feel like Batman and Catwoman's relationship is so good in this movie because it's so it's so personal and kind of intimate, but it's still got the mask between it,
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting dynamic, and I thought they worked very well together in the movie. Carmine Falcone, spot on. Gordon's awesome. Alfred's awesome. One thing about Gordon, I will say, so I love the portrayal. I thought Jeffrey Wright was awesome, but there are a few moments when it almost feels like he's becoming a self-parody of himself, or a parody of himself, because just the way he says things certain times. There's so many times in the movie he's like, so you're telling me.
Yeah.
And it's because it was when they discovered that Penguin wasn't actually the rat, and it was Falcone.
Yeah.
And this message had clearly laid that out. And after the message was done, Gordon looks to Batman and he's like, so Penguin's not the rat? And it's yeah, buddy, he's not the rat.
Right.
And so that's a total nitpick, but it's it was almost comical at times, but it wasn't enough to distract me from anything.
I would agree,
I want to talk a little bit about Gotham City in this movie. I think it's as much of a character as it's ever been in Batman media, and especially when comparing it to the Dark Knight trilogy, and especially the Dark Knight in particular. A lot of daytime shots of Gotham, a lot of wide sweeping shots, and in this movie you're very up close and personal.
Right.
You're
in the alleys.
You're in the alleys, very narrow depth of field, so only a very limited part of the screen is in focus at any given time.
Right.
And it just makes it feel so claustrophobic.
Definitely.
And then you throw in the nighttime element, and it's just spot on as a noir and as a Batman adaptation. Right. It's awesome.
Yeah, I really got to praise this movie's opening in that regard, because I feel like from the very get-go you're this is Gotham City. After the brief introduction to Riddler, we see Gotham City on Halloween, and we get a kind of voiceover from Batman, which is really, I think, some really good Batman writing, because it really encapsulates how he feels about Gotham City and what he's all about. But seeing a lot of crime happening on on Halloween, and they all look up and see the bat signal, and that's when we get our first Batman appearance, where he finally strikes after all these criminals thinking, when's he gonna strike? I see the signgle in the air. He's coming.
How about that first appearance, man?
Yeah.
Dude, you hear the boots clicking on the floor, bro, and it's so awesome.
Right.
It's so awesome. And the first time he says, "I'm vengeance," I can't lie, I thought it was a little corny.
Yeah.
But it's what they do with it throughout the movie. You know, like the spins that like Penguin throws on it and that Catwoman throws on it.
Yeah.
It makes it interesting.
I agree.
But that opening scene when he comes out is just amazing. And he just beats up a bunch of goons. There's a lot of goons in this movie. We were talking about this
around
beforehand.
Gotham City, yeah.
You got those goons with the face paint at the beginning.
Yeah.
You got the Iceberg Lounge goons.
Riddler goons.
They were untethered.
Yeah.
The Riddler goons are wild. And that's another nitpick. Not entirely sure what I thought about the Riddler goons.
It was kind of because they went into the kind of internet. They made Riddler this kind of like internet person with a very niche following that is willing to go out and do this. And I mean, Gotham City's probably full of psychos, but it was a little strange seeing them all at the top of the stadium.
Definitely. Just a couple other points about this movie I want to mention. I think the music and the sound design is just so on point. It's so just like creepy and haunting, and it just captures that atmosphere so perfectly. Like they've got these haunting strings. That main like theme, like when he walks out, is just so awesome. When you hear it again in the car chase scene with the Penguin. Talking about
when he's walking out of the flames.
Like it's so awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Talking about that scene, that car chase with the Penguin might be one of the coolest scenes in the movie. I will say narratively it doesn't make the most sense, because Batman is just trying to question the Penguin here about if he's the Rat or not.
Yeah.
And he could have just gone to the Iceberg Lounge and talked to him one time, but instead he caused a major pileup of cars on the highway with explosions, and I'm sure there were some casualties involved, man. And I was like, if you're Batman, there's got to be an easier way to get that information.
Definitely. And they finally catch Penguin, and I don't think he really gives them much useful information.
Not really. So I'm willing to put that, like, look past that just out of how awesome that car chase is.
Right.
But it is a kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with Batman in general, he's the hero. A lot of his narrative comes from, he never kills, he doesn't use guns, stuff like that. There are definitely times in this and other Batman media where it's like, that dude's definitely dead. But I feel like this movie doesn't go too hard on it, and it's pretty easy to look past it, and,
Definitely. So, man, I could keep talking about this movie all day, but unfortunately, the segment can't drag on forever, so we'll mention a few more things, and then we'll wrap it up here. A common complaint that you see with this movie is that it's too long. And I definitely understand where that's coming from. The third act gets not stagnant, but it does kind of drag on a little bit. And I don't necessarily have a problem with the third act, more so the very final sequence of scenes. Because there's that one scene after Batman's kind of saved the day, where he's all dirty, he's looking up at the sky.
Right, we see Gotham rebuilding.
It's a callback to that earlier scene when he looks up at the bat signal, and it brings up this idea of like Batman is a symbol, and Batman is a symbol of hope.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the perfect spot to end the movie on. Him looking up, it's a perfect callback, kind of brings the themes of this movie full circle.
Right.
But instead, they don't end it there. They
do not.
They have the Joker scene, Riddler and Joker, and I mean it's a cool scene, but it doesn't fit in that movie.
No,
if they wanted to include it, they should have done a post-credit scene.
I agree.
And maybe they just didn't want to slip into that kind of Marvel trend, but it doesn't fit in that point in the movie. No. And then the final scene with Batman and Catwoman, it's a good scene, but it's not very necessary to conclude the story. I think their relationship had kind of already hit its full arc.
Yeah, it was clear where it was going.
Yeah, so I remember walking out of that movie for the first time, I was a little disappointed that that's how it ended.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's another nitpick, and there are no, glaring issues with any of that stuff. But it does drag on a little bit in the third act, just so much stuff to wrap up and, pay off. But they do a great job with that payoff. So that's about it from my end. I'm sure there are other things I wish I would mention that I'm going to, realize later that I never said. But do you have any last comments? Anything you want to mention?
I just gotta say, I really like the way that they have the Riddler as this core villain, but they also have the deep corruption of Gotham as kind of a villain in itself. You know, we see the Iceberg Lounge, and then we go down to 22 Below, and it just, you see the corruption keeps going deeper and deeper, as they show all of Gotham's, you know, top officials, you know, down there.
And that's where Falcone just works so perfectly as a secondary villain, because he just blends perfectly into the main story.
Right. And Falcone's relation to the Waynes, I think, was really cool, because we see Batman and Bruce Wayne kind of as a, you know, balance of life in a lot of other Batman media, but with this time, it's like he really just wants to be Batman. We see him, you know, talking to Alfred, just like, I don't care about being Bruce Wayne, I just want to be Batman.
Just Batman.
But Bruce Wayne kind of gets dragged into it with all this stuff with Falcone, and I thought that was a really cool way of incorporating some Bruce Wayne action into it.
Definitely. And Pattinson, such a unique spin on the character.
Absolutely.
Such a...
He's kind of creepy.
He's a sad boy.
Yeah.
He's a sad boy.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a nice spin looking at Christian Bale as kind of the ultimate playboy.
Right.
It's just a great spin. I think he pulled it off really well. Hopefully we get a second Batman movie.
Sounds like it.
It's supposed to be in the works, but with everything that's going on with DC right now, who knows for sure.
Now, can I ask you, Max, do you have any potential hopes for a sequel? Is there any direction that you would like to see them go?
I mean, I would like to see villains that aren't commonly featured. I don't want to see another Joker movie. We don't need it. I don't want to see Bane again.
Yeah.
I would like to see like a Hush.
That'd be really cool.
Or, I know, this is kind of me stealing your idea because this is what you've said about the Court of Owls.
Yes,
I know you
absolutely
ride pretty hard for the Court of Owls if you want to...
Yeah, I do. The Court of Owls saga is a pretty recent Batman story, but I think it's one of his strongest. And the Court of Owls really embody this kind of creepy Gotham with this, you know, corruption that kind of goes further than you could ever see, where they kind of own this city, but nobody ever sees them, knows about them. And I think the comics kind of take a horror spin in a few spots, and I think seeing Matt Reeves try to put that on the screen would honestly be really cool.
I mean, he's the perfect person for it.
Absolutely.
Right? Perfect franchise. Never going to be a better moment. So
I completely agree.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens, but regardless of the future, we've got this movie. It's an infinitely rewatchable movie.
Right.
And I'll probably rewatch it again pretty soon.
Me too. I think we can both agree that this would be considered true Kino.
True Kino. This has been it for the very first episode of Citizen Kino. I'm Max. This is Sam. Thank you for watching, and with ZTV goofing off, see you later.